Hello, my name is Taylor Doty. I am part of the Visual Information Sciences and Neurosciences Lab at California State University, Northridge in the Psychology Department. And today I'm going to be talking about my thesis, Reading Between the Lines, the Impacts of Technology on Reading and the Visual System. Let's go over a little bit of an overview first before we jump right in. First, I'm going to be talking about the background, then I'll get to the current study, and then I'll talk about the impacts on literature and society. So first things first with the background, let's talk a little bit more about reading and visual discomfort. So another term for visual discomfort is asthenopia. It arises from near work tasks such as reading or anything you can do within arm's length or so. Some symptoms are getting a headache, your eyes burning, or you need to reread text. And don't worry if you have some of these symptoms. Over 70% of college students suffer from this currently. Speaking of college students, they are more likely to read using digital books such as a tablet or computer screen than paper. And this is a problem because digital books are more likely to produce visual discomfort symptoms than physical paper. While many studies have focused on reading with newer systems, such as tablets or computer screens, very few have actually looked at reading with virtual reality, and almost none have looked at optometric measurements with reading in VR. VR has started to become used in, virtually every field for training and has been implemented in numerous recreational activities such as games and immersive experiences. Some experiences and many training activities involve showing the user text for instructional purposes. This may be a problem as research has found that there is a similar VR asthenopia that may be derived from the clashing of the two visual systems. So what I mean by these two visual systems is that first we have the accommodative system. This is the thickening and thinning of the lens of your eye that allows an object to remain in focus as it changes distances from you. The other is the vergence system, which is the actual physical turning inward and outward of your eyes as they keep an object on the back of your retina as it changes focus too. Now in the real world, these two systems work in succinct mess. And in VR, however, we are seeing a possible accommodation-vergence conflict. So like I said previously, in the real world, these two focal distances match. However, in virtual reality, where the object is on the closer side, we find out the vergence focal distance is closer than the accommodative focal distance. This may be causing a strain on the visual system that we need to measure in order to better understand the way may be causing this discomfort. So that comes to the current study. One of the aims of this study is to compare the impacts of reading using paper, tablets, computer screens, and virtual reality on the visual system. I also aim to use subjective self-report symptoms, objective optometric measurements, information retention questions, and reading rates to compare visual discomfort and ease of use with the medium. I hypothesize that those that read in VR will elicit the highest change in symptoms, whereas those that read using paper will show the lowest change in visual discomfort symptoms. I also hypothesize that those reading using VR will elicit the largest changes in optometric evaluations, indicating the most visual strain, whereas those that read with paper will show the lowest, which indicates the least amount of visual strain. Now with these methods, I collected 26 participants via SONA, or the subject pool, at our university. However, this was a smaller sample size than I intended due to COVID-19 shutting down campus. I had originally intended to do 100, which will be completed later on this year. Now for the materials, I had 4 different conditions. I had in the bottom left corner virtual reality with the Oculus Rift. I had created the virtual environment using Unity 3.5, which is a virtual environment creator. I had remade the lab and imported the PDF. For the computer condition, I had a Windows desktop with NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 graphics card. For the iPad, I had 7th generation iPad, and for paper, I had a printed PDF. They all read the same material, which was the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, specifically the story of Silver Blaze, as most people have not read it within the last 10 years, and it's a simple yet interesting story. For the surveys, I had the Acute Symptom Survey, the Virtual Reality Symptom Questionnaire, or the VRSQ, developed by Ames et al., a short answer reading comprehension, and demographic questions. Optometrically, I measured for stereo acuity, or more of actual depth perception. I had fixation disparity, which measures how well you're able to focus on an object that you think you're focusing on, and an accommodation convergence accommodation ratio, or ACA ratio, which measures visual strain. For the procedure, I first showed them the pre-surveys, where it was the Acute Symptom Survey and the VRSQ. Following this, I had all 3 optometric measurements. Then they read for 30 minutes using one of the previously mentioned mediums. Following this, we did ACA ratio again, and then post surveys, we included all of the surveys afterward. Let's get to the exciting part, the results. For the virtual reality symptom questionnaire, we actually find a significant difference with the mediums. However, the Helmert contrast showed no significant difference. VR showed the largest increase in reported symptoms, with computer following close behind it, while paper and tablet were pretty even. We can see that virtual reality do have the most symptoms related to it for reading. For the acute symptoms survey, I evaluated the number of people reporting symptoms before to the number of people reporting symptoms after reading. Virtual reality does have a significant difference where 2 out of 5 individuals reported symptoms before reading, while all 5 reported symptoms after reading. We can see that paper is a second to this, while non-significant, which is a little bit more surprising as the literature did not show that it was going to be as high of a visual strain as the other objects. For accommodation convergence accommodation ratio, we actually see that there was no significant difference for any of the mediums. We can see, though, that virtual reality does have a higher increase in strain after reading, while all other mediums report a decreased ACA ratio. These effects may be more prominent when a larger sample size is included. For reading comprehension, there was 3 questions. The first was asking about what was actually occurring in the story. The second was transportation, and the third was to name a character that may be a suspect. There was no significant difference for any of these measures. What we can see, though, is that while non-significant, we do see that computer actually has the least amount of information retained compared to all other mediums. However, they're virtually all the same. For reading rates, I measured the amount of pages read. We can see that there is no significant difference. While VR does have slightly less pages read than all other mediums, they're all basically the same as well. So let's wrap all of that up in conclusion. First, we can see that there was a significant difference for the VRSQ, with VR showing the most symptoms. There was a significant difference for acute symptoms survey, with the VR showing the most amount of symptoms reported. There was no significant difference for ACA ratio, no significant difference for retention of material, and no significant difference in reading speed. So all in all, what does this mean? It's showing that virtual reality is associated with the most amount of visual discomfort symptoms and the highest change of visual strain while non-significant. And all other mediums do have mixed results, which do go against the literature, where I found that digital is going to have more strain than paper. So why should I care about this? Let's talk a little bit about the impacts on literature and society. Well, no other studies have compared all 4 of these mediums together, let alone with the same stimulus. Other previous papers have compared 1 or 2 mediums together, such as just screens or paper, but really none have compared all 4, especially with the same stimulus. And very little or no other studies have used optometric measurements to see discomfort in reading, especially with virtual reality. This is a very novel study in that approach. For society, it's really important to understand our ocular impacts, especially since COVID-19 is allowing all of us to stay inside. We're all more likely to be focusing on our screens. So it's really important to understand this, as individuals can use these technologies for hours daily, up to 10, 15 hours. There's no limit right now. One of the things I would love to focus on in the future is going to be looking at presbyopes. I had originally intended to include this in my plan. And presbyopes are those that are over the age of 40 that need reading glasses due to their age. It's really vital to compare these 2 groups to college age to presbyopes, as there are physical differences between their visual system, and very little to no work has compared these 2 groups in terms of asthenopia. Presbyopes are using these new technologies for various activities too, including like novel approaches to classic therapies, including physical therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. However, a large part of this population is considered a risk group right now due to COVID-19 epidemic, and will be collected when it is safe to do so. So thank you very much for listening, and here are my references.